Hey y'all, I'm Fan. Welcome to my channel, Sewing with Tay. I want to thank you guys so much for running up my other videos with the hand knitting. I had a lot of comments about how I did the hood on my hand knitted sweater. But I've been so busy. I actually had a hand knitting class here in Columbus, Ohio. So I was prepping for that. So I hadn't had a lot of time to make any video, but I did make a sweater doing that class with my students. And I plan to add a hood to it. I didn't have time to do that during the class. So I'm going to try to walk you guys through how I did it. I also am going to type it out and put it on my blog, on my website, theayaemporium.com. And you can also go to my Instagram page, the Aya Emporium, my TikTok page, the Aya Emporium, and you can also see some snippets in other videos there as well. If you're new here and this is your first time, I'll put some links below so you can see my previous hand knitting videos. I did a colossal, massive hand knitted video. I did like a regular one, and I did one with the hood with a crisscross stitch, and I did some Q&As. So this one would be for the hood. So let's get into it. Okay, I was taking a regular clothing approach when it came to the hoodie. So on my previous sweaters, you have your back straight across the back, and then you have your front pieces that meet at the center back, and they just come straight down for 2 panels, and I'm going to show you that right now. Okay, so here is my previous sweater. So this here is my front, this back here is the back, this is the other front. So we have here where this is where we kind of split our stitches to start the front left side and the front right side. So this is what I was doing traditionally. So you just continue knitting the back, and you kind of stop with half your loops, and then you keep knitting on one side, and then you insert a yarn, and then you start knitting the opposite side. But for me, for a hoodie, you can't do that because you need a place for your hood to be anchored. And I'm going to give you an example. I'm trying to make this as less confusing as possible, but I feel like it's really hard. Okay, so here's a jacket that I own. It's a zip front jacket, but like the same thing as my knit jacket. I just want you to see what the goal is so we can kind of work through it when we start knitting. So this is my jacket with the hood. And what you want to do is the front of your jacket, sorry, I'm like on the mic. The front of the jacket has a little bit of a curve where the hood is attached. And basically, we need to make room on our garment so that we can attach the back of the hood and then along the front. So the seam along the front. I will try to demonstrate how I got here, but this is my one that I was working on that I'm going to add a hood to. So I had to make a curve shape, and this might be a little bit too long, but I'm still working through exactly how to do this. But you have to make the curve shape here on the front panel. It's like falling off the form. On the front panel to get a spot to attach your hood. And then on the back, I left, there's a safety pin in here. I left 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 loops. I left them open. So when you're doing your back piece, you would continue knitting. You would continue knitting your back panel up and over your shoulder like we've done on the other ones. Hold on. For your back panel, you start from the bottom and you knit all the way up to the shoulder, and then you continue over the shoulder to make your front piece. So what I did was, say this is 20 rows. When I got to where my shoulder is, I stopped. And this is 10 rows, this is 10 rows. But I took 4 out the middle and I pinned them closed so they don't come out. And then I took my remaining, this 2 from here, so I took my remaining 8 rows. I took my 8 rows here and I started knitting. I did like 2 rows. I probably should have did less. I think I did like 3 rows. I knitted only those 8 rows. 8 loops. So I knit those 8 loops. And then when I got to here in the front, I made a chain. Same chain that we would make when you first start your hem. I just made a chain of 3 loops. Basically to accommodate for the loops back here that I did not loop. So now that my panel in the front would be like my panel down here is the same width as half of my back. I'm going to re-explain that, and I'm going to attempt to draw it on my iPad so that you can better see visually what I'm saying. But basically, that was what I did so that I could get a neck drop, the distance from like here to here, so I can get a neck drop. And then to add the hood, I am going to go in here. I'm going to insert a yarn. Then I'm going to go in here and I'm going to create loops. So that part I will do with you guys because I haven't done it on here yet. But since I already knit this during my class this weekend, I can't show you that again unless I reknit a whole one. Maybe I can do a little mock-up. I'm going to try. So I made this mock-up. We're going to pretend this bottom is the hem of the back of your garment, and these top loops are your shoulders. There are 15 loops. We're going to split it in half, so we have 8 on one side, 7 on the other side. This is what you would do when you get your back panel to the length that you want it to be, and you are now at your shoulder and you're ready to start your hood / front bodice. So I put a clip, as you can see here on the right side of the screen, marking my center loops. I decided to split this in 3. So I pinned off 5 loops in the middle. So I have 5 loops on the right and 5 loops on the left. Currently working on the left side, I'm going to knit 2 rows of only the 5 stitches, leaving those center 5 stitches or center 5 loops pinned and ready for when I get ready to attach the hood. I'm only going to say you should do 2 rows. I've done 3 rows and 4 rows, and it seems cool, but it also seems like it's a little bit too long. So I'm going to suggest you do 2 to 3 rows at max on each side. So I did my rows here, and I'm only going to do them on the 5 loops that are there. Those 5 middle are going to stay the same. The 5 on the right are going to be there when we're ready to switch to the other side. Now that we're here, you see that we're getting a little bit of a curve started. We are going to make a loop. I don't know if this is the correct term, but this is what I did. I made another like slip knot, just like the slip knot we made when we first started knitting. So I crossed the yarn through and I pulled my working yarn through, and I made 3 loops and on both sides. So that's my first loop. I'm going to pull through to make my second loop, and then I'm going to make one more for a third loop. So there we have the chain stitch, and I'm going to continue the same way we did on the other samples, and that is I'm going to start looping it. But you want to notice all the rest of those stitches are going to stay over there. So now that I have my 3 extra loops, I'm going to make sure I'm pulling the yarn through the back, which is how I've been doing it for all the other loops. Make sure your purl stitches stay on the right side. So here is my 5 stitches with my 3 loops. I'm going to do it one more time to make sure that it's clearer. So I have my 5 loops, making sure they're all stable there. I'm going to take my yarn, I'm going to cross it over, and I'm going to pull the working yarn through to make a loop, just like that. And then I'm going to use that loop I just made to create the second loop. And then I'm going to go inside there to pull the working yarn through one more time for the third loop. And I'm going to pull my working yarn to the back in the opposite direction. So from there, I'm going to make the first knit the first loop there, and I'm going to put my finger through there and make the second loop. And this is on those 3 additional loops that we made. So we have 2 loops so far. Going to do my third loop, and I'm not very good at this like creating new loops, so it's always a little messy there. But there I have my 3 loops, and I'm getting that curve right there, and that's what we want. We want a curve from the shoulder, and then we're just going to continue to knit those 5 that we had already been knitting. So what we have created is a small extension going back to what will be the center front of your garment. And then now we have 8 loops, the 5 we started with and the 3 that we created. And now we're just going to continue to knit left to right, back and forth until our front panel is as long as our back panel. So the only intricate part about this process is creating those 3 new loops. But remember, this side over here, we're going to leave it. The middle, we're going to leave it. So I fast forwarded this part of the video just so you can get a better visual. This is me knitting my new 8 rows. That would be the left panel on my sweater. Okay, here is my very sloppy sketch. So this is what the original sweater looks like. Your back is a rectangle. We're gonna just use random numbers. Your back is 16 loops across. So when you get to the shoulder, or what you want your shoulder to be, and the shoulder is however long you want this to be from your shoulder to the hem. So say this is 16 loops wide. To create the front panels, you're going to stop here in the middle, and you have 8 loops on this side, 8 loops on that side. You're going to continue knitting because we've been knitting from here up to the shoulder. We're going to stop at 8, leaving 8 on one side and 8 on the other. We're going to continue knitting just these 8 loops, left to right, all the way to the point where this length from the shoulder to the hem is the same length as this length from the shoulder at the back to the hem at the back. So then on the original, we would insert a yarn, and then we would start knitting 8 loops on this side. So this back is done, this panel over here is done, but we are going to knit 8 loops back and forth, left to right, all the way down till we get to the length where this side from the hem to your shoulder is exactly the same length, and there's no gap here. It's just one loop going that way and one row of stitches going that way and one row of stitches going that way. This is how the original was done. But for the hood, we need to leave a bigger space here in the back. We need to leave a space because there's currently no space. So I'm going to do another little drawing that kind of explains the hood. All right, so this is what the body looks like for the jacket or the sweater with the hood. This is your back. That's a rectangle. It's 16 loops. And then this is your front left and your front right. You have a total of 16 loops. We're going to do it the same way where you would get to your shoulder, wherever you want your shoulder to be. But then the one side that we are going to continue knitting up to the hem of the front, this is going to be 6 loops. We're going to leave 4 loops in the middle and then 6 loops on the other side for a total of 16 loops. So we're going to keep knitting 6 loops here, left to right, left to right. I did about 2 or 3 rows. That might have been too much. You might can do 2 rows. So knit left and then knit right, left again, I guess, because you need to get back to the middle. When you get to the middle, I did a chain, which is basically the same way we start at the hem, how you do the slip knot. I added 2 loops here. Once we did our 2 rows, I added 2 loops to get this little curve here, to basically to get back to half of this, which would be 8. So you're gonna get your 2 loops back there, and you're gonna do the same thing on the other side. But you're gonna have 6 loops, then you're gonna make 2 like extra loops on the side, and then you're going to continue to knit back and forth with 8 loops all the way back to the hem, so that your width at the hem from here to here and here to here would be the same as it is down here, which is 16 loops. And then the same thing on the other side. You're going to insert your yarn, you're going to knit, the 6 rows across, or 6 loops across, and then you're going to do 2 rows, left, right. And then when you get to the front, you're going to add those 2 loops in, and then you're going to knit 8 loops all the way down to the hem. Hopefully that is clearer, and I can kind of show you now as we're going to start knitting. Make the actual hood, we're basically just going to be knitting from this center front edge all the way around to the other side, and then we're going to knit again all the way back, all the way around. Basically kind of like a square, knit back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So I inserted the loops the same way we did the sleeves on the other videos if you've seen those. I inserted the loops, and then I started looping, inserting loops all the way from this front edge all the way up to the shoulder, across those back stitches we left open, and then back over to the other side. And then I just knit back and forth until I got till about 18 rows. So here is my neckline. This is the front edge. This is the sleeve. These are my loops that I left open. I just have them pinned so they don't go away. And here's my other front edge. So I am going to start by unpinning these, and then I'm going to start looping. So here we go. I have my working yarn, and I'm going to make a little fold here, and I'm going to insert it into the center front edge of my, I'm going to say right side. It's hard to do this left and right thing when I'm looking at this in reverse. But here is my loop. I'm pulling that tail out towards the edge. So that part goes that way, and the working yarn goes the direction in which I am making loops, which would be to the left. So the yarn goes that way. Now I'm going to pull out a bunch of yarn because it's just easier that way. And then I'm going to start going into this edge of the loops here, and I'm going to just make some loops. I'm trying to work on my consistency, so those loops are a little big. Oh, there we go. Someone told me just try to make them finger length, and I felt like they was getting a little tight, so I felt like that was hard to do. But I said I was going to consistently put forth the effort to make my loops the same size here. So here you will see I'm going through that. It's a little hard to see actually, but I'm going through that for the edge of the neckline, and I'm pulling through making loops. I actually did not count these loops, and the last time I did this, I was trying to make sure I counted them because they kind of were folding underneath and making it hard to make sure I didn't skip any. But eventually, I just got the hang of it. This is my back. This is where I put the pins in so that I would not knit them and they wouldn't like unravel for any reason. This pin kind of got stuck. I was struggling to try to get this pin out of here, and I got these nails on. I'm like way overdue for a fill. I think I'm just about to give up the nail life. So I was struggling to get this pin off of the yarn, and I also wanted to do that without breaking the yarn because that seemed like that would be horrible. But eventually I did get this safety pin out of there, and basically there are my loops. My two loops there. I'm going to continue to loop in. I was pulling my yarn through the bottom towards the top, so I just wanted to make sure I did that so that my knit stitches are on the right side. So I have two more loops here that are pinned. This pin came out super easy compared to the last one. So there are my two loops, and I'm going to thread the yarn through, and then I'm going to keep going with creating new loops along the rest of the neckline. So there is another loop there, and then we're going to go all the way until we get to the edge of the other side. And I'm so sorry I'm going off of screen, but I did try to move this around so that you can see it. But yeah, same way we make our sleeve, the method of like looping the yarn into that top edge, I tried to do that the same way. And sorry, I'm off the screen again. I'm sorry guys, this was difficult to do and see myself. I forgot to turn on my screen monitoring to do this. Screen mirroring, that's what I meant. So there, I've adjusted the screen, and here we're going to go all the way to the edge. So now we have all of the loops. This is my first row. For the hood, I did count my rows of stitching,
Okay,
Alright,
here
so now
is
I
all
have the
of my
loops for my
loops.
hood. So I
They
have
look
this a little
kind
bit
of
long.
crazy,
But I
but
have,
there's my
this is my
working yarn on
front
the
of one
end,
side.
and that's
I
my
have
center front
all of my
edge,
loops
and then I'm gonna
here.
go through here and
And
pull out all
then,
my loops.
there we
And
go.
there we go. See, they
I have
hide
all the loops
underneath
here.
there. So the goal
This
was
is
to
the
make sure I
back. So
didn't
these were
miss
my 4
any.
loops
There's my
where I
center
left those
back. These are the
pinned.
ones where I
And then
just
we added in these loops
made
here
new loops with them, and these
along
are the loops that are
the
along the neck edge
front
that I
neck.
created.
And then this
And then
here
that
is my
there is my tail
tail.
where I started.
So there.
So
Now I'm just going
I
to
did choose to
get my working
count the
yarn and I'm going
rows
to
of
continue
stitching
making
for the
a
hood,
row,
because
and
last
I'm
time I did
going
like
to do
19 rows and I felt
about,
like it was a little bit
let's
big,
try 10,
but I decided I was
12,
going to go
because
a little
last
bit
time the hood was really
smaller.
big.
So I like made a mark every time I started a new row. So the first row was started. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to do this the same way we've been doing everything else. I'm just going to intermingle. I don't know the word I want to use. I'm going to pull the working yarn through each of the loops that we have created, and I'm not speeding this up yet because I want you to get a visual. And all I did time this a little bit only because I was videotaping it, so it was easy to time. But this took me roughly 10 to 12 minutes to make the hood for this. So it's not a big time add to the process of making the hood, although I did use what I feel like is about 3/4 of an entire ball of yarn, and I am using the Burnett a yarn, and it has 72 yards on it. So it did take up quite a bit of yardage um when it came to making the hood. This part of the process is supposed to be relaxing, but I feel like when I'm recording and knowing that I'm going to try to write it up and record it, I'd be so stressed. Like, I gotta figure out the best way to film this and show this to you guys so you will understand, because I want you guys to be able to do it too. So you can see here, it is coming along. This would be my third row of stitching, and you will see here you're getting a little bit more of like a visual of the knit like you do on the other sections of the jacket. Again, I am also working on keeping my stitches, my loop length the same. I keep wanting to call them stitches. Keep my loop length the same, and you're basically just making a rectangle. So you're just gonna keep going up and up, and you will see as I go along that it's basically just a rectangle. So now I'm gonna speed this up, because this did take me 10 minutes, as I just told you guys. Always remember to pull your working yarn in the direction that you are working. It makes your life a lot easier. You can kind of see the shape is coming together, and move that yarn, move it the other direction. And I feel like when I'm not making a YouTube video, this would be a lot more relaxing. So I stopped for a moment just to kind of give you an idea of where it's going. See, it's coming along, and we're just going to continue to make a rectangle. Actually, with editing this video, I realized it took me about 12 minutes just to kind of get through the 15 rows. So you will see here is 15 rows. It's kind of a rectangle. Nothing special once you get it started. Here it is. I be feeling like a proud mom who kid just hit the superintendent's list, because baby, I am not a knitter, but I knit this. Watch out. So what we gonna do is we going to cast off. So I've made a few other videos on how to cast off, so I haven't gone into detail here, but we just gonna cast off and finish the edge here, and then we're gonna fold it in half. And when we cast off, we're gonna leave a long tail, a tail that's long enough for us to kind of stitch the two layers together. So we're gonna fold it in half and then stitch it together along the cast off. And all I did to stitch it together was I pulled two stitches on each side, and I pulled the yarn through the top layer and the bottom layer and pulled it kind of tight. You don't want it to be too tight, but you do want to make sure there's no gaps. You kind of want to pick two stitches that are close to each other, is what I've experienced so far. And I'd be real iffy about just tucking the yarn, so I like to put it in a knot. It makes me feel like it's a little bit more secure. I knot it, and then I weave that extra part through the yarns. But here's the outside of the hat. And here it is on my form. It looks super cute. Excuse my
All right, y'all,
mess.
here's the hood. It is actually really warm and I just got hot. But here is my hood. It is very deep, it's very cozy. I decided to do 17 rows. I know previously I said like 12 or something, but I decided to do 17. The one I made the first time, I did like 19, 20, and I feel like it was really big, so I did go a little bit smaller. Someone gave me some tips on how to stay consistent with my stitch tension, so I feel like the stitches are a little bit snugger, more condensed than some of the rest of the body, but these are all samples, so you know. But here is the hood. Has like a little thing here from where we combined them, but otherwise I think it's super cute. It is super cozy, super warm. I'm sure it's a cute accent for any other like outfit. But yes, this is my hood tutorial. And all of my samples are for sale on my website, the Ion Emporium. So if you're okay with them being a little bit inconsistent, they're a lot cheaper than what you would buy anywhere else. So get you one if you like them. But until next time, bye. Thanks for watching. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you know when the subscribe button and the notification bell. I'm not re-editing this again. So you know when I am making new videos. But until next time, bye.